In the center of the white marble-covered hall, the four of them were sitting side by side on chairs placed on the platform. There was no one else in the room except for the four of them. The walls and ceiling were made of glass, and outside the windows the tops of other towers could be seen stretching out indefinitely. In front of them, sitting on the seats, was a large circular pillar called D-Minder.
Floor 1648, room 25,
Claire said, looking at the mysterious symbol glowing on the white floor. Then Claire shook the test stick, the symbol disappeared. Following Claire, Feroz stood up. Then he looked around and asked, "Where are we?"
"Where? It's the library building 3312,
Claire said, pointing at the reminder with the test stick. There was a large, strange symbol carved into the top of the D-Minder. Apparently, the symbol represents Building 3312.
Did we get this far in just that moment?
Feroz asked. Then Claire frowned and she turned to Elandra. Elandra giggled. Feroz tilted his head, wondering if he asked something strange.
"We have no concept of time here, so she doesn't understand what you're saying,"
Elandra said. Hearing that, Feroz now frowned his brow. The group then traveled to the 1648th floor with D-Minder. On the 1648th floor, there were rows of rooms. When they got off the D-Minder, there was a circular platform with a diagram of the room layout displayed on it.
"Huh?"
Claire exclaimed in confusion upon seeing the layout diagram.
What's wrong?
Feroz asked, and Claire showed him the layout with the test stick.
"For some reason, only room 25 is in use."
Indeed, the room Claire was pointing to was emitting a red light. No other rooms emit light.
"So strange, it's first time happening like this. I've never overlapped with someone before. I wonder who's here to investigate what. Maybe it's the director Ramza, isn't it?"
Elandra said, and Claire nodded in agreement.
"That's probably true. Grandpa Ramza could have checked out this place right away. And maybe he was curious about what we had just said and came to see it first. Come on, he should have said that from the beginning. Maybe he didn't want to have to hear all those reports from us later. That's really childish."
Claire looked at the layout diagram and nodded again, saying, "That's probably true."
"Okay, then let's go,"
Claire said, and headed down the hallway to room 25. The remaining three followed suit. As they turned left at the 5th row, the door to the room at the very back of that row opened. From inside, a large man dressed entirely in black came out. He was wearing a long, black cloak that trailed along the ground, with a large hood pulled down over his eyes. Claire and the others stopped there. The man dressed in black came out of the room and walked slowly towards Claire and the others with his head bowed. Feroz stared intently at the face of the man. His face was pale and his nose was abnormally large. As he passed by, Feroz caught sight of the man. His eyes were glowing red. He slightly raised the corners of his mouth and grinned. After the man passed, Feroz followed his figure with his eyes. As he rounded the corner and disappeared from sight, Claire looked up at Feroz with a quizzical look on her face.
It wasn't the director,
Feroz said, and Claire nodded.
"But what's with that guy? He's kind of creepy. I've never seen anyone dressed like that before. Maybe he's a member of the dark forces."
Claire muttered to herself, lowering her gaze as if she was overwhelmed.
You're worrying too much. If that man is here, that means he passed the entrance check, right? If that's the case, then he can't be a suspicious person, can he?
"Yeah, I guess so,"
Claire nodded.
"But it just doesn't seem like a coincidence. Because, like I said, I've never had someone happen to be in the same room I was going to check before. Besides, it was someone so suspicious who was using the room. I feel like there must be something bad occurring." "But if he really was a member of the dark forces, wouldn't he be dressed in such obviously suspicious clothing? Surely would he disguise himself to hide his true identity?"
As Elandra said that, Claire glanced at her face and looked down.
That's true, but...
Claire muttered, and turned around. Then she headed to room 25. Claire waved the test stick in front of the door to room 25, and the door opened without a sound. The room was as spacious as the dwelling Pharos lived in on the surface world. There was a staircase leading down at the back, and a large crystal display was set into the wall at the back. On the left was a set of desk and chair, with a crustar set up on top. On the upper floor, which was U-shaped from the front wall to the staircase, several chairs with backrests were placed on either side, facing the front wall. In the center of the room at the bottom of the stairs was a semicircular object made of crystal. It was exactly the same as the coffin-like object on which Pharos had laid his body when he came to the subterranean world.
What's that?
Pharos asked, pointing to the crystal object in the center of the floor below. Claire was sitting on the left-hand seat, poking Crustar with the test stick. Alondra and Ramal were already seated on the chairs set up on either side.
That's Margamore,
Claire said, looking in the direction Pharos was pointing. Then she quickly turned her attention back to Crustar and continued poking.
You go inside and see the lives of various people. And you don't just watch, you become that person and actually experience the lives that are happening there. Not just pain, suffering, pleasure, and things that you sense with your 5 senses. But you can actually experience all of the emotions that person is feeling. So, it can be a little scary, but what's more, it's really interesting.
You can actually experience it. Does that mean it doesn't matter if you're male or female?
Yes, of course, gender doesn't matter, and you can experience not only humans, but animals, plants, minerals, anything.
By minerals, you mean things like rocks, right? Can we experience things like that?
Yes, we can, but minerals are a bit boring.
Said that, Claire stopped operating the test stick and stared intently at Crustar.
But what is the point of experiencing the life of someone else or something?
Because if you do that, you'll gain a deeper understanding of everything, right? For example, let's say a war breaks out on Earth or some other planet. And if you could actually experience how that war came to be, and the consciousness and thoughts of those who led it, you'd be able to prevent such wars from happening in the future. And if you could understand why that person took such action, and the pain and suffering they felt, you wouldn't simply criticize those people. That's the apparent purpose of Margamore and this library. But actually, it's only the people in the central office who research that kind of thing. For ordinary people like us, it's just a form of entertainment to enjoy.
Claire, who had been looking at Crustar as she was talking, looked up and said, "It's good."
It's ready. Can we go to Ibiza first?
That would be okay, Alondra replied.
Well, Pharos, will you try to go and see then?
Yeah, that would be okay, but we will all go together, right?
No, actually only one person can go. After all, you can't experience the life of one person at the same time, right?
Claire said with a straight face, as if it was obvious.
I see, but what should I do if I go and see it by myself?
Pharos wanted to find out the truth of Ibiza's story as soon as possible, but he had some anxiety about experiencing someone else's life. As if reading Pharos's thoughts, Claire said, "It's okay.
The world that you see from Ibiza's point of view is reflected in the Crustara,"
Claire said, pointing to the large crystal panel in front of them.
"So that we who are left behind can read exactly what you see and feel. Don't worry, if it gets too dangerous or painful, I'll stop it right away. Also, even if you experience pain, the experience itself will remain as information, but the system is set up to purify any accompanying emotions and pain. So, even if you experience a similar situation in the future by yourself, you won't be disturbed by it. That's another purpose of experiencing other people's lives through this Margamore, so that we won't have to be reincarnated again and again."
Claire poked Crustar again and stood up.
"If you're worried, I'll go."
Claire looked at Pharos with wide eyes, and he shook his head.
No, it's fine, I'll go.
Claire smiled at Pharos' words and raised her index finger, saying, "There's just one thing to be careful of.
After you've experienced the life of one person, a tunnel of light will appear, and you will definitely pass through it, right? Don't worry, if you don't do anything, it will come through on its own, okay?
Okay, I got it.
Then, come this way."
Pulling Pharos' hand, Claire went down the stairs.
"Lie on your back here with your head on this side,"
Claire said as she stood right next to Margamore and tapped the hollow inside with her hand. Pharos lay down in Margamore just as he had when he came to the underworld. When he lay down, the lights were turned off and the room became pitch black. And Pharos' consciousness gradually faded away.